This is episode 234 of Zen and the Art of Real Estate Investing with my guest, Lauren Saidel-Baker. Lauren is an economist with ITR Economics, and ITR Economics is the oldest privately held, continuously operating economic research and consulting firm in the U.S. since 1948. Lauren, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Yeah, I'm excited to talk to you. I know you weren't there in 1948, but this company has been going for a long time and certainly can provide extreme data that's backed by facts, really, and historical evidence, right?
Yes, that is our goal, is to give forward-looking economic forecasting. So we do that with this methodology that was, started to be developed. We've been tweaking the secret sauce ever since, but back in 1948. So really what we're doing is we're looking at business cycles. We're looking at those leading indicators. What tells you what's coming next for your sector? So that is the evidence that I have behind all of my forecasts today.
Yeah, but the evidence is really an important part, because we were just joking before we hopped on that there's so much real estate information out there, but the majority of it's not really based on historical evidence and facts. It's kind of built for TikTok, going to get
There's a lot of
clicks.
emotion. I mean, this is a very emotional sector. People they feel it. And so I think that's what makes headlines stick. If you can really tap into someone's emotion, they're going to click that link. They're not going to click the boring one that has maybe a more factual or nuanced portrayal of the data, but they're looking for the hot, buzzy headline. So that's what I really like to do, is pride myself on saying, what is the hard data actually telling us versus what do we want to hear?
Yeah, and I know from, again, we were joking, but I wanted to give everyone the story because I saw you on stage at BPCon 24 in Cancun, and you had said something about being a robot, and I was like, oh my gosh, like, I think we're going to be friends later, because this is what I get. But part of doing what you do is removing the emotion from it and boiling it down. That's something that somebody can take without maybe they still get emotional about the result, because as you said, especially now, it's an odd time. But you're trying to just remove the headline factor and focus on facts, historical evidence, and data.
Exactly. And I'm not sure if I made this joke on stage, but I'm very much an economist that they taught to go on stage. I'm not a public speaker that they taught economics to. When I applied for my job that I'm in right now, which is doing a lot of interviews and keynotes and, public facing persona, I very much applied for a back office position. I just wanted to be doing the analysis, only talking to my Excel spreadsheets, not talking to any other humans. When the president of the company called me to offer me the job and explained what it was, I literally told him, you have the wrong resume. You picked the wrong phone number off the stack. That's not me. So that's really where I nerd out and I get excited to dig into the analysis. I don't know what they saw all those years ago, but it's been fun to get to tell the story as well. So that's why I'm doing what I do.
So how does an election cycle change what you guys do at ITR Economics? Because there's so much that's in flux, and then there's so much promised, and then so much that happens. It must be every 4 years, a different time. It's just different than the other 3 years leading up to this, I was suppose.
Yeah, the short answer is the election itself doesn't change any of our forecasts. And even the party elected, right, red or blue, whether it's the presidency or Congress, right, House, Senate, any of those things, that does not change our broad view. Things like GDP, like industrial production, like housing starts. Now, specific policies, those can change.
Yeah.
The good, bad, I'm not sure if it's, but the outcome of that is we have some visibility. Even with the Trump administration coming in, everyone had an inkling that tariffs were high on their agenda, but we still don't have visibility. And, we're sitting here in midway through the first quarter of the year, just not really sure exactly how this will play out. So we have plenty of lead time. We can use that, and nothing turns on a dime in the economy.
Yeah.
Our GDP economy is just so big, the largest in the world. Even one person can't sway that direction, all of that momentum, even if that person happens to be sitting in the Oval Office. So we're going to use the leading indicators for the rest of this year, 2025. The leading indicators are really in the books. We have a very clear picture based on those economic fundamentals of what's coming down the pipe at us. Now, tariffs, that could absolutely increase pricing. We see some risks both to the upside and downside on that front. Mass deportations, that's the other one, especially for the construction sector. I think that could be a risk factor. But broadly speaking, who's in office, that doesn't change, if we've been underbuilding housing and have low vacancies and low inventory today.
Yeah, that's really interesting, though, because I think that people would think that, oh, your entire forecast is going to change. But no, when you've been doing this again since 1948, it's built on the historical abstract of everything that's happened. But also, what you said just at the end is so important. Whoever is there is still working on things that have been building for years. So it's not like you can just turn on a dime and everything is going to change. And you, as a company, couldn't make all of these predictions and then just wait to see it just makes a lot more sense to me. But I don't think it's what people expected.
No, absolutely not. But we have run the analysis for every possible combination. What party controls, the White House, the Senate, right? Are they the same party? Are they different parties? We have not yet found a statistically significant and consistent correlation between any party control doing better for GDP or housing starts. Like I said, the momentum behind these factors, behind these major indicators, there is just so much going into that mix. There's so much lead time, so much holdover from one policy to the next. So I always go back to the Warren Buffett quote. He said, red or blue, I can still make green. And I love that attitude.
I think everyone's always trying to, I guess, figure stuff out, like, hey, what's going to happen with the investments? But in real estate, if you just kind of hold steady and buy right, you generally will always be okay. But looking out over the next 5 years, are there some things that we should be looking out for that may play a role in what investments we decide to buy, hold, get rid of, or things on the horizon that we should look at? Because I remember there were a couple that I heard and I was like, oh, that's interesting. And based on data, not just,
Yes.
a TikTok video where somebody says, oh, in 5 years, we're going to be in trouble.
Yeah, I love that you targeted it at 5 years because that is when I think everything I've just said holds no water. In 5 years, right around 20, maybe 2029, but 2030 is looking to be it. We at ITR, we are forecasting a depression. And so this will be, I want to be absolutely clear, this is not 2008. This is worse. This is longer lasting, much, much more significant economic event, really, because that's when we hit our demographic pinch point with the baby boomers
Yeah.
aging, retiring. We just, as a nation, can't sustain the current level of spending that we do. And we're going to have so many more spending pressures on Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, all of those things with that age cohort are going to draw down. Now, we're not in a balanced position today to begin with. If you just look at our national debt, I mean, everyone knows it's out of control.
Yeah.
As we said, higher interest rates today, that's higher interest payments. So our government is not in a good position to carry us through the next decade. And I think individuals have to see that as, well, our government's been living beyond its means. I myself should protect myself, live maybe below my means, but do something to protect that downside. So I want to be clear. I do still think there is enough appreciation in those next 5 years from
Yeah.
2025 to call it 29 or 30, that even at the decline, even with the depression, most kind of property classes probably won't fall too far below today's level, right? So take the appreciation, take the upside. But if you are looking at, getting out of those positions in, say your target was 2032, maybe rethink that timing. I think we could be in for a slide down. Now, the really good news, the best part of all of this depression outlook is that if you look ahead through it, protect yourself on the way down, again, be more conservative, look for those flight to safety assets, hold where it makes sense, but buy everything you possibly can once we hit the bottom. And it's probably
Yeah.
going to be 2034 or 5. It could even be 6, right? This is a long multi-year slide, but that is going to be the best buying opportunity that any of us will ever see.
What advice can you give to people who want to stay in real estate, but also probably should be diversified out there with the entire economy and where we're going?
I would say watch the consumer because at the end of the day, how consumer health in this country is performing, that is your goalpost for anything residential, single unit, multi unit. That is what you should be watching. So income adjusted for inflation, that's number one. We have a number of other, you can find them on our website, indicators that we follow. Our proprietary ITR retail sales leading indicators is very consumer based. And when we see that start to tail off, that's when we start to get worried. Now, right now, it's not doing that. It's showing a huge amount of stability, a really, really just broad, stable base for economic growth overall, because about 2/3 of GDP is driven by consumer spending. But really specifically for retail sales and for just housing, um, that level of consumer health is there right now. When that goes away, as it very likely will in, I don't know, 27, 8, 9 timeframe, that's when you need to see the warning signs. And it will be, again, things like those inflation adjusted incomes where we see this happening first. But a number of different leading indicators, they will be screaming a year or two before we start to see the actual slide. Now, on the downside, I also don't want anyone catching a falling knife, right? When we do see that slip, like I said before, this is 2008 was like, what, 2 quarters of recession? This is several years of
Yeah.
compression. So don't try to time the bottom too low. Wait till those same leading indicators tick back up again. That's going to tell us the bottom is here. It's time to invest. I bought my primary house back in 2011. Best move I ever made. It just, timing wise worked out when I needed to be somewhere new to
Yeah.
work. But my goodness, that is just, I mean, if you can recreate that in a much deeper dive, that is going to be a huge, huge upside to be enjoyed in the future.